What up, though? Welcome back. The Atlantic. When Mormons aspired to be a white and delightsome people, a historian looks at the legacy of racism in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints by Emma Green. September 2017. We are using readily available sources here. Not all of the sources are from the 1600s, 1800s. Some are more recent sources. We endeavor to peel back the layers, clear up some of the confusion, and of course, point out so that you may dodge the hijacks. Until a few decades ago, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints taught that they shall be a white and delightsome people, a phrase taken from the Book of Mormon. Until the 1970s, the LDS Church also restricted black members' participation in important rituals and prohibited black men from becoming priests, despite evidence that they had participated more fully in the earliest years of the church. And by black, we understand that there's no such thing as a black human. None of you have ever seen a black human. And in the etymology dictionary, as well as the 1828 Noah Webster's English Dictionary, American Dictionary of the English Language, the term black means pale, bleached, pale, bleached, bleak. No such thing as a black human. There isn't even a such thing as a black panther. The black jaguar is actually really dark brown, and you can see that in the bright sunlight. Let's shake it. Max Perry Mueller, a historian at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, argues that Mormonism is a quintessentially American religion. Mormonism is a quintessentially American religion. Who are the Americans? You, me, the people who they just termed black, the people who they term African American, the people who they've termed colored, Negro, mulatto. These are the Americans, the only Americans that exist today, the only Americans that existed yesterday. I spoke with Mueller about his new book, Race and the Making of the Mormon People, which focuses on a few important figures in Mormon history. One of them, Jane Manning James, was part of the first black, or properly American or American Indian community in Salt Lake Valley. Despite her close relationship with the family of Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, she was denied access to important religious rites during her lifetime because of her skin color. This is from Literary Hub. Why do so many genealogical documents lead back to the Mormon Church? Neil Thompson on the Joys of Digging Through Digital Archives by Neil Thompson, March 2022. For many writers of history, a perk of the job is visiting libraries, archives, universities, and courthouses to dig through dusty boxes of file folders or, if need be, scrolling through miles of eye-straining microfilm. You should all engage in this practice. It is one of the most fulfilling things that I've done and will continue to do. The discovery of downloadable riches at online repositories like Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, MyHeritage.com, and especially newspapers.com, along with archives.gov, the National Archives, archive.org, Hathi Trust, and the digital offerings of libraries and magazines like Harper's and The Atlantic rocked me. I felt like a guy from the pre-internet days who gets handed a Kindle. How many books are in there? How many books in there? Especially at newspapers.com. I would sit in my attic office and lose hours virtually flipping through the pages of a late 1800s Boston Globe or William Lloyd Garrison's abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator. I was shocked to find so many pages of scanned century-old newsprint at my fingertips, even if some of the headlines were depressingly familiar. Immigration restrictions, voting rights proposals, claims of stolen elections, anti-Semitism, racism. Depends on how you look at it. Interacting with archivists and librarians. So, before we move on, the author of the article says, I was shocked to find so many pages of scanned century-old newsprint at my fingertips, even if some of the headlines were depressingly familiar. Immigration restrictions, voting rights proposals, claims of stolen elections, anti-Semitism, and racism. Earlier, he associated the fact that he was able to do this and flip through these old newspaper clippings as gold. And it is. I wouldn't call it depressing. Interacting with archivists and librarians for sure, and miss the thrill of discovering a buried gem and holding century-old documents in my white-gloved hands, like the time I was hunting for a court transcript in a rural Georgia courthouse and found it misplaced atop a file cabinet. I learned about know-nothing gangs that patrolled poles in the 1850s, the know-nothing gangs, the Native American Party. That led me to digging into how and why so many genealogical documents and old obits and newspaper articles were so easily within my digital reach, compliments of the Mormons' efforts. According to a 2015 Mother Jones article, the church began collecting genealogical records in the late 1800s and storing them in a bunker known as the vault. The alleged idea was that church members could use such records to identify and posthumously baptize ancestors who might join them in the afterlife. It says the alleged idea was that the church members could use such records to identify and posthumously baptize ancestors who might join them in the afterlife. Alleged reason that all the information was being kept. I'm glad they kept it nonetheless, because it's helped me tremendously. And I know it will help you as well. The church has claimed that its longtime interest in digitizing historical records isn't some religious plot, but an effort to connect people with their past. That is very kind. And if that was their intentions, that is exactly what it's doing. because it's helped me connect with my people. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints funds Family Search to help people draw strength from their family relationships, past, present, and future. I would love to believe that the only reason that they do this is to help people draw strength from their family relationships, past, present, and future. I have no reason to believe otherwise. And the only reason I say that, I'm not being naive. The only reason I say that is because it's exactly what it's done with me. It's helped me draw strength from my family relationships, past and present. Ancestry.com launched in 1998, created by two Brigham Young University grads. It was followed by myfamily.com, familysearch.org, and newspapers.com, which was spun off into a separate site in 2012. Ancestry.com was sold to a private equity firm in 2012 for $1.6 billion, sold again in 2016, $2.6 billion, then sold to Blackstone in late 2020 for $4.7 billion. You might ask, why would someone want to buy? Well, maybe you won't ask why someone would want to buy all your family's genealogical records. Blackstone, which you would probably do well to look into as homework. But yeah, Blackstone bought it, Ancestry.com, for $4.7 billion. I don't know who Blackstone is. I don't know what they're about. And at this moment, I'm not interested enough to go dig into it. Maybe at some point I will. But Ancestry.com has also been really beneficial in my journey. And I'm sure it would be beneficial to you as well. Now, Ancestry.com for genealogical records, not for the slob swab. Nah, we don't do the slob swab. No, we're not going to take your spit and connect you to some dirt, okay? Or sand, as it is in most cases. Let's shake it. Granite Mountain Records Vault. The world's largest collection of genealogical records is housed in a secure vault located in the mountains near Salt Lake City, Utah. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints built the Granite Mountain Records Vault in 1965 to preserve and protect records of importance to the church, including its vast collection of family history microfilms. Remember in the first article when it said that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was at one time an American institution? And if it's American, who are the Americans? Those who are termed black or African American or colored or mulatto or Negro. They are you. The American is you. I'm the American, and we are the only Americans that there ever was. Everyone else is a foreigner. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints built the Granite Mountain Records Vault in 1965. And who are the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Who are they? That's for you to find out. In 1965, to preserve and protect records of importance to the church. Now, you might ask yourself, Why would your genealogical records be important to the church? Well, why would foreigners' genealogical records be important to the church? Was it always about storing the genealogical records of foreigners, or did it start off with storing the genealogical records of the Americans? These are just questions. There is no public access to the Granite Mountain Records Vault. There is no public record. There is no public access, which means you get it through Family Search, Ancestry.com, and such. You can't go in. You can't go in. Why? Maybe it's for the better. But it reminds me of the said gold that's in what is it? What fort is said to have? Fort Knox is said to have this large store of gold. Well, we know when the foreigners came here early on, they were obsessed with gold. They were obsessed with many things here, but we're just speaking on gold. They were obsessed with gold. So they wanted tons of it, and they wanted the people here to gather it. And they wanted them to do it, and they forced them to do it by any means necessary. So they took large amounts of gold back home to Spain, Britain, whatever, wherever they took it. They took tons. They took a lot of gold. And it is said that in Fort Knox, there's a large store of gold. Whether or not that's true isn't really important. My point is that if it's something so valuable to you, why would you store it somewhere indefinitely for no reason whatsoever and not use it just because you think it's pretty? Well, the American Indians, your people, your family members, your ancestors wore gold as adornments just the same as we do today. Not many of us do it today to the same degree because now we are charged fiat currency for it. We no longer, well, not all of us, but it's not really a regular thing for one of us to grow up being a goldsmith or even a blacksmith for that matter. But we wore it as adornments just as we do today. Just as adornments. Just like any other article or accessory. Why use someone's labor to gather up tons of gold and store it? Okay? The same as with the microfiche and microfilm. The vault safeguards more than 3.5 billion images on microfilm, microfiche, and digital media. There is no public access to the Granite Mountain Records Vault. It's just to store indefinitely. Yes, some of the information, some of the digital records are made available on Family Search and Ancestry.com, but not all. The vault safeguards more than 3.5 billion images on microfilm, microfiche, and digital media. Currently, the church is in the process of digitizing the microfilms and making those digital records available through FamilySearch.org. The images in the Granite Mountain Records Vault are collected through agreements with archives, libraries, and churches from more than 100 countries. This is from newsroom.churchofjesuschrist.org. Religion and Public Life at Harvard Divinity School. Mormons, Genetics, and Digitized Data. Christianity Case Study, Technology, 2019. Harvard.edu. The LDS Church keeps records of genealogies across the globe or across the planet. As a result, over the last century, Mormons have become experts in digital data storage and an important research population for geneticists. Since 1894, the LDS Church has sent representatives around the world to collect records from churches, governments, libraries, and more. It says since 1894, the LDS Church has sent representatives around the world to collect records from churches, governments, libraries, and more. It says in 1894, they sent representatives around the world or throughout the world. So before 1894, were they just collecting records or information on the Americans? In 1938, the church became a leader in microfilm, a technology to miniaturize documents that can shrink a page to 1/25 of its original size. With the development of computers and the internet, Mormons have created some of the most sophisticated informatics and digital storage technology in the world. You thought the people was just around there running around with horse and carriage and whatnot, growing their own food, being self-sufficient. But they in business as well. Stored in the Granite Mountain Records Vault in Utah. Today, the LDS Church claims to have the records of over 12 billion deceased people, some going all the way back to the 1st century CE. Data gatherers on 220 teams in 45 countries, along with hundreds of thousands of Mormon volunteers, are digitizing millions of paper, records, photos, microfilm, and more. By 2014, the church records were 32 times the size of the data recorded by the U.S. Library of Congress. Everyone knows who you are. In those records of over 12 billion people, you honestly think that your family aren't included within those 12 billion deceased people's records? Well, they are. So there is no excuse. No excuse. Right? There is no excuse. Due to the IGI, the best records for many countries across the world are in Utah. In 2008, the Vatican instructed Catholic clergy to deny Mormon data collectors access to parish records in order to prevent future proxy baptisms of Catholics. Yeah, I bet it was to prevent future proxy baptism of Catholics because they are so religious and so by the book, right? In 2001, Mormon billionaire James Sorensen started one of the earliest genetic test kit companies, Relative Genetics, in part due to his religious interest. It was later bought by Ancestry.com, another Mormon company. And remember, Ancestry.com was bought by Blackstone in, I believe, 2014. if I'm not mistaken. Church leaders also reacted strongly against Mormon scientist Thomas W. Murphy, who in 2002 confirmed with DNA analysis that Native Americans arrived in America from Asia and not from Israel, as the Book of Mormon claims. Church leaders also see the little jewel that we got by him trying to prove that Native Americans didn't come from Israel. This has nothing to do with American Indians. This has nothing to do with you and I. We're not talking about the original people of this soil, you and your family. We're not talking about that. We're talking Native Americans. We're talking the people who came here from Asia, not just Asia. Not just Asia, but, well, yeah, from Asia. Because the landmass that we call Africa, Asia, Europe, it's all one landmass, Afro-Eurasia. So whether you say African, Asian, European, Caucasian, it's all the same. It's all the same thing, just like from the top of Canada to the bottom of Argentina and all the islands are the Americas. Get it? Let's go over that one more time, because this seems to be a huge debate. Not with me, of course. This stuff is not up for debate for me. It's a waste of time. I'm more interested in knowing my people fully. Mormon scientists, let's go back. Church leaders also reacted strongly against Mormon scientist Thomas W. Murphy, who in 2002 confirmed with DNA analysis that Native Americans, the Native Americans you see online, on TV shows, cowboy movies, you know, the ones with the two braids, the ones that, you know, beat the drum, offbeat, beating the drums, the offbeat two-step, the yelling all crazy, hollering, screaming all crazy, you know, with the big feather headdress and not the feather crown of the American Indian. You know those Native Americans, the ones who always talk about the pale face, but look exactly like the pale face, or are the pale face. Church leaders also reacted strongly against Mormon scientist Thomas W. Murphy, who in 2002 confirmed with DNA analysis that Native Americans arrived in America from Asia and not from Israel, as the Book of Mormon claims. And guess what? They didn't say when they arrived, right? So don't assume it was 20,000 years ago. They didn't say when they arrived. But I got an idea. And if you go back and look at some of my previous shows, I share a bit of information on that. When the LDS Church demanded Murphy recant his findings or be excommunicated, he refused to recant. Because to him, I guess the truth was more important than his association with an organization. Is he still around? Wait, 2002. Is this guy still around? Somebody look and see if this guy, Mormon scientist Thomas W. Murphy, who in 2022 confirmed with DNA analysis that Native Americans arrived in America from Asia, who completely went against the common narrative. Is he still around? This is from PBS. Again, readily available articles, readily available sources. We're not going to talk about what we think about PBS. We know even the most liberal of news people, the government has their thumb on the pulse of these places. PBS Timeline, the early history of the Mormons. According to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS, the Garden of Eden in which God placed Adam and Eve is located in Jackson County, Missouri, near the town of Independence. A quick side note on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You know, they send around the guys on bikes with the white button-down shirts or whatever, and the black pants, the black slacks or whatever, the uniform, and they send them around to different neighborhoods. And when I was a shorty, or like when I was a teenager, they sent them around. They sent them around to our neighborhood sometimes. And I'm not saying this. Like, I'm not making this up right now. This is crazy. They came on this particular block that I was on. They came on this particular block I was on. They were talking with the children, you know what I mean? Because the children, you know, they on this block and in my neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, it was quite rare to see a Afro-Eurasian or Caucasian. It was quite rare. So naturally, they were on bikes, and naturally the children, you know, the little American Indian children, who you might term as black or African American, they saw these people as interesting. Like, yo, they came over, and after about 5 minutes of being on this particular block, somebody started shooting at somebody else. So the Mormons, the representatives from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the roughly probably about 17, 18, 19-year-old Caucasians start running for cover as fast as they could. This was their experience, riding their bikes to that block. Let's shake it. According to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS, the Garden of Eden in which God placed Adam and Eve is located in Jackson County, Missouri, near the town of Independence. Now, why do they say that? Why would they think that? Who were the early Mormons? It says the early history of the Mormons. Who were the early Mormons? Well, it says that they were an American organization. And again, who are the Americans? I'm just asking questions. 1830, the first 4 Mormon missionaries, including Cowdery, head west that October. The missionaries taking the Book of Mormon's message to the Indians in Ohio and Missouri have stopped in Kirtland, Ohio. Who are the American Indians? You. We just heard in 2002, the Mormon scientist, He told you where the Native Americans come from. See, we're talking about Indians, right? We're not talking about Native Americans. We are talking about the people who you term Black Americans. You know, the ones that don't have culture. 1857, September, Mormon militia led by John Lee and acting in tandem with a group of Native Americans. See how they do that? They say Native Americans. No, it's American Indians. This is where the hijack comes in. This is why these records are so important. This is why they are in a vault in the side of a mountain. This is why Blackstone purchased Ancestry.com in 2014, I believe. Don't quote me. Go back. Because the information has to be controlled, especially this information. Oh, with America being the land of milk and honey, and foreigners coming here to take your stuff, it has to be controlled. 1857, September, Mormon militia led by John Lee. Who is John Lee? And acting in tandem with a group of American Indians attack a wagon train of settlers from Arkansas. Settlers. This is 1857. And we know from the late 1800s to the roughly early 1900s is when the large wave of Europeans or Afro-Eurasians got here. Mormon militia led by John Lee and acting in tandem with the group of American Indians attack a wagon train of settlers in Arkansas, slaughtering 120 men, women, and children in what became known as the Mountain Meadows Massacre. Now, why would the Mormon militia be linked up with American Indians? Were the Mormon militia American Indians? You tell me. This is a book in the land of cave and cliff dwellers. The physical copy by Lieutenant Frederick Schwatka. This is a physical copy. A good book, pretty good book. It says 1890. Uh, 1895, 1896, the Castle Publishing Company, Educational Publishers Company. Here we go. It says, at the top it says Northwestern Chihuahua. And again, it's just because I'm mentioning somewhere in what we term as Mexico, okay? New Spain, what we term as Mexico. Get this picture out of your head of the people that are always the face of that soil portion that we call Mexico. They're always the face. They're always pushed as being the real Mexicans, the real indigenous people of that soil portion. It's all false. The original people of that soil portion are the people who you rarely see on TV. You just don't see them on TV as much. Because of the internet, you can go see them. But guess what? They look like you. They look like your auntie, your grandma, your grandfather, your cousins. We passed a herd of about 1,000 head just before reaching La Ascension, all in magnificent condition and attended by some 8 or 10 vaqueros who were driving them to market. With the usual Mexican politeness, they took particular pains to give us the road. They said, With the usual Mexican politeness, they took particular pains to give us the road. You don't really associate politeness with Mexico now. You associate cartels and whatnot, right? See, we're talking about the people of that soil. And to do so, drove the whole herd over a high hill around the base of which the road ran. Just before reaching La Ascension, we came to the Mormon colony of Diaz, named by them in honor of the president of the Mexican Republic, numbering about 50 families. They came to the Mormon colony of Diaz, numbering about 50 families. Mormon colony, about 50 families. We left early one morning for a drive of about 60 miles to the lower Mormon colony of Juarez, named after Mexico's greatest president since the War of Independence. Do you know who fought in the Mexican War of Independence? Maybe this will tell you who the Mormons were, or give you a little insight into who they are and who they were, how they became to be who they are today. The meaning of Piedras Verdes is green rocks, but the rock projections in cliff, hill, or stream are of all imaginable shades, not only of green, but of red, yellow, brown, rose, even blue. The effect is inconceivably beautiful against the wonderful blue sky of this part of Mexico. Just before reaching the Mormon colony, you come to a high ridge from which can be seen the little town nestling along the banks of the picturesque Piedras Verdes River. Juarez is a bright-looking little town of some 50 families who raise all their own fruits and vegetables and have a goodly supply for the less thrifty people of the surrounding country. Our party was kindly cared for by 2 or 3 of the Mormon families, as there were no other places of shelter beside their homes. Do the right thing.